spent my 20s in and out of clinical depression. I was moving jobs, changing cities, and because of this search, I couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't believe I couldn't stop drinking. And I was so unhappy in my life and so disappointed and ashamed of myself that I chose a date to take my own life. I ended up meeting a woman who said that the first thing that I needed to learn to do was to meditate. I remember looking at her like, really? When I started meditating, I never knew that it was possible to be that happy and still be living here in my human body. This method could really help people, and I decided that I wanted to write a book and coach people and help people to learn how they could change their lives too. When I first started my own business, I invested in so much business coaching. I reached a point where I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt. You know, in the moment, you've got your plastic credit card and you think it's a good idea, you just spend the money. And I found my accountant and I burst into tears. Him showing me how the QuickBooks software could sync with my credit cards, and that was a huge tool in me being able to manage and eventually pay down and get out of debt. Take a second and rearrange your body or the way that you're sitting. I started helping people. That's where I really found something that I loved to do. It's been a couple weeks, how are you?
So you know how sporadic I've been.
I know, but it happens to everybody. It's so normal. Prosperity and abundance for me is having a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. To be on the other side of it and be able to help other people is something that for so long, I never could have seen myself doing it. That's what I do now all the time.
Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to share something about Intuit's technology. I wanted to focus on two of our priorities. One of them is speed, and the other is technology to drive growth. Our mission as the engineering team is to provide awesome technology to power prosperity in service to Intuit's mission. And as Brad said, we've had a history of disrupting ourselves and of deeply understanding our customers and reimagining our solutions to address their evolving needs. And so we've managed to not only survive, but to thrive across multiple technology eras and grow with each of them. And I think we're well positioned to grow into the next era, which is going to be all about data, data science, machine learning, AI, conversational UIs, augmented reality, and virtual reality. And so first, let's talk a little bit about speed, and I wanted to focus on three areas within that. One is about refactoring QuickBooks Online. One is about getting to a common tax platform, which we mentioned earlier, and one is about continuing our journey towards cloud hosting. So first, as part of refactoring, we took a look at who were our customers, what were their fundamental needs for each class of customer, more money, no work, complete confidence in what they're doing, and what were the services that we needed to build to serve all of those needs so that they were driven customer back. And all of those services are there to provide speed so that users can actually, or so that developers can grab a service that previously exists and put out a new piece of functionality, and efficiency, so we build each of those services only once. So let's talk about this in the context of QuickBooks. The QuickBooks Online code base began 20 years ago. And as you might imagine, the architecture is no longer cutting edge. It's a big monolithic block of code, or had been a big monolithic block of code, in which it was very difficult to make changes, to innovate without actually creating errors. And so it took a long time to release it, to converge the quality of each release. So it would take weeks and weeks to actually converge any new QuickBooks Online release. So a journey that we started on a few years ago was actually to break this into more and more separate modules, which are easier to build in, easier to innovate, and could be released independently of each other with greater speed to faster satisfy our customers' needs. So first, we broke up the user experience and introduced a framework for user experience plugins. And then we broke up the back end into a number of underlying services that could power compliance for payments, payroll, and accounting. The result of this is that a couple years back, on the UI side, we were able to make maybe a couple of releases a month of new functionality. Today, we're releasing over 400 new versions of that every month, which means that we are able to address evolving customer needs and our evolving understanding of our customer needs ever more quickly than we were before. So let's talk about this in the context of tax. So we mentioned having moving towards a common tax platform. Our history is more complicated than that. It is that we had one tech stack for our consumer platform for tax and another tech stack for our pro platform, both of which were like our old QuickBooks platform, big monolithic blocks of code in which it was difficult to make change, slow innovation that delivered a one-size-fits-all experience for the 30 million odd users who touch TurboTax, and it was difficult to maintain compliance in as the tax code changes every year. So what we are in the throes of doing now is actually moving towards a single tax platform that can span the needs all the way from consumers to large pros. It breaks up the architecture into more modular components that are easier to maintain so that there's a single data layer that serves all of tax, a single logic layer that represents the tax code of the US and of Canada in rules-based logic, and then that is able to present 3 different user experiences on top of that, again, based on the same tax substrate, which is easier and faster for us to maintain. And so the result of that is we can innovate faster. What used to take a whole team of people to update a tax topic, it would be several months before they would be done. Now a couple of engineers can go off and knock one out in a couple of weeks, which really goes to our speed of innovation. We can now present right for me or personalized experiences rather than one experience for all 30 odd million users. And it drives significant efficiencies because instead of having to capture all the changes in the tax law every year in 2 platforms, we now do it in 1. One of the other services that, of course, we have been adopting is moving to Amazon Web Services. And we started this journey a little while ago, and I would say in the last year, we more than trebled the amount of data and the amount of compute that we're doing on Amazon. And now we have very substantial components of all of our products running in Amazon today. This has driven significant speed for us. As you might imagine, in the old world where we were provisioning our own servers, it might take a couple months to increase capacity to meet demand or to do some new experiment. Now that can be done in a matter of minutes. And so that's bearing good fruit for us. So now what I'd like to talk about is some of the technology that we are using to drive growth, and particularly around data and AI. So as you can imagine, we absorb data from all kinds of different sources into our applications. We absorb data from banks, from credit card companies, from billers. We absorb data from governments and from payroll companies, and all of that feed into our products to make the customer's experience easier and more delightful. We then take that data with the customer's permission and feed that back to various different entities, including banks and financial institutions, accountants who are working with our customers, third-party software developers who are developing applications that want to have data flows and workflows that tie together with our applications, as both Sasan and Dan discussed, and also, of course, sharing data back with government so all of our customers can keep current on their taxes and other compliance. We then take that data and we analyze it rigorously and try to provide insights back to our customers and back to all of those third-party entities. Now, we have an awful lot of data. And it does behoove us to take really, really good care of that data. So we spend a lot of energy and time on security and privacy for all of our data. We started with a set of principles that govern that, the use of that data. So for example, we will not sell our customers' data. And we have a rigorous process for tightening our security every year. Now with all of that data, which includes more than 20% of the GDP being tracked in QuickBooks, more than 40% of the tax returns in the US, what we're able to do, modern AI is driven off of data and volumes of data. And so that feeds what we're able to do with AI for our customers. And if you look at and break down all the various different fields in AI, it turns out that a very large number of them actually do benefit the class of customer whom we serve. So starting here on the bottom, knowledge from human experts, we are aggressively codifying that into various of our systems, most particularly tax. If you look at knowledge graphs of financial data, if you look at all the transactions that we have access to from our customers, then we can actually build a map of what's going on and then actually learn from that and provide a better experience for all of our customers, both to make the transactions that they do easier to do and so that we can make recommendations for them. And then, of course, we can get into predictive modeling to help customers with things like, should I pay this bill? If I pay this bill, am I going to make payroll or am I going to miss my rent payment? It turns out we started working on AI a long time ago, about 10 years. And we've been ramping and ramping with hiring AI people and also with what we've delivered into the market. Today, we have some 150 patents that we've filed in AI and machine learning, and we have some 40 products and features that we have delivered and running in market today. Just want to give you a few examples of those. One of these is pre-search. So imagine if you're in TurboTax and you have a question and you hit the search button. Before you even type in a search term, what it will do is look at everything we know about you, every fact we know about you, where you are in the tax experience, users like you and what questions they've had at this point, and actually pre-serve up a set of answers that are going to be the most likely ones to the question that you're likely to have. If it turns out that one of those isn't actually the one that you need, and you type in a question, we will parse that question. We will match that question to other questions that people have asked and serve up the most popular answers to you. If we don't happen to have any good answers for that question, we will farm that question out to people who have answered similar questions based on linguistic analysis with the highest scores, and in a short period of time, you'll get an answer back in the system. So some 48 million people used this service in the last year. And more than 3/4 of them walked away with the answers that they needed before they had to go to a tax expert to get the answers that they needed. So let me talk about an even deeper application of AI that I think is going to have profound impact on the tax experience. So it used to be that when you basically would walk through and tell the story of your life in a series of a set of answers, which then we would compile into a set of forms to be sent off to the IRS and state agencies, it's still a rather long experience, a lot of different questions to be answered. And what we've done is tried to compress that experience into the shortest one possible that makes sure that you get all the deductions that you should and file an accurate return. And we're doing that both with old school and new school AI, both rules and logic, and also machine learning with data. So with rules and logic, we're doing things like, if there's something that we can infer about you from facts we know before and logic, we will not ask you that question, where in past years we might have asked you that question. So we can get rid of that part of the experience and make it shorter and simpler. Also with rules, we're able to answer questions like, hey, I don't like my refund. Why is it the way it is? We can backchain through that logic and show you the most salient questions that you answered that had the biggest impact on your tax return so that you can check those answers, make sure they're correct, and be confident that you got it right. With machine learning, what we're able to do is to steer you away from parts of the tax return that are likely to be fruitless based on looking at millions of other users and steer you towards the part of the tax return that people very much like you may have taken a refund or may have taken a deduction that you might have missed. So again, logic and machine learning applied to improving the tax experience. Let me give another example. This one's about accounting and AI applied to accounting. One of the problems, of course, is that when you get your bank feed of data fed into Mint or into QuickBooks, is that now you've got to figure out what all those expenses were. And really, in an ideal state, we want to figure all of that out for you and present that to you. Now, since we have millions of users and billions of transactions to look at, along with all the categorization that all those users have done, through machine learning, we can actually come up with very good answers. So if you'd roll the video.
Sorting through personal and business expenses at tax time is such a burden for the self-employed that 30% of them don't take any deductions. But QuickBooks self-employed customers have a better way with the Expense Finder feature. They can import transactions from their bank and credit card accounts. Once a customer enters in their bank's website credentials, they can select any account that contains business transactions. It's okay if they also contain personal transactions. The machine learning and Expense Finder can tell them apart. Expense Finder's algorithm begins working on their transactions. It uses data captured in the transaction, such as transaction name, account name and type, and a host of other data we can access to determine the likelihood that a transaction is business-related. Here are the categories of the business expenses that Expense Finder found. Let's look at utilities. Customers can review each transaction and confirm that it's a business expense. They can even split a transaction that's part business and part personal. After confirming their expenses in all categories, business expenses are ready for a Schedule C. Expense Finder gets smarter each time it's used, incorporating this feedback to continuously retrain the tool to better recognize business expenses.
So imagine that, the difference between looking through a box full of receipts and statements at the end of the year and trying to remember which were business, which were not, what was for what, and versus going in and going to an experience that just takes a few minutes, that actually is able to definitively decide in many cases whether it was a business or a personal expense, and then feed that straight into TurboTax so that you've got a Schedule C that's already created. So a day to minutes to get that piece of your taxes done through AI. So with that, just to like to wrap it up and say, I think we are well positioned to move into the next technology era in greater service to our customers and to our mission of powering prosperity around the world through AI, machine learning, through conversational UIs, through services, through blockchain, and also through the very rich set of data that our customers entrust us with. Thank you very much.